I think we, as players, I think we managed what we could as best as we could. I think both sets of teams were quite professional throughout. We found ourselves in a very strange position this week with bad light playing a major factor, which I don't think I've ever seen a game be affected by bad light as much as this, which is very frustrating, but also the weather as well. It's been very wet throughout the week, and ground staff have done everything they can to get it dry, and thankfully we've got some cricket today. But I do think it's hard to blame the umpires here. I think there's something bigger that needs looking at higher up the chain.
Give us a bit of what that is exactly. You can expand on that at your heart's content?
Well, I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what the answers are, to be honest. I don't want to comment too much on it. Maybe there's got to be a minimum standard of floodlights and play on throughout with a slightly redder ball, lighter red ball, rather than a dark Duke's ball. But, until those things change from the ICC, the umpires have got to follow the rules that are in front of them. And as players, we've just got to do as we're told. And I think both teams did that to the best of their ability this time around. And
I heard you say on the TV there that you'd be open to maybe slightly earlier starts. Can you just, I think the theory is that the ball does a bit, but is that something that the top order batsmen like yourself might just have to take on the chin to get the game moving? Yeah, don't necessarily have to start every day at 10:30, but maybe if you need to make time up, that's something that you could look at throughout the game if you need to make time up. So light isn't as much of an issue. So it's a possibility, I suppose. Something to maybe look at. Thanks.
Okay, who would like to go next, please? Okay, Dean Wilson and then Ali.
Joe, are you quite keen or quite happy for all these kind of decisions to be taken out of the players' hands just because of the vagaries, of match situations and things like that, and essentially it has to be down to the officials to have that intent and that desire to get as much cricket played?
Well, I don't really know what more of an impact we could make as players. I suppose you'd have to, if players were going to have an input, both captains would have to agree to it, and that could cause all sorts of problems. I think this is way above my pay grade in these circumstances. I just think that there are different things that might be able to be looked at and trialled, and see if there are other ways that we could potentially do things in this country, in particular, to avoid similar scenarios in the future. I do think this week has been very unique, and it's not very often you lose so much time to bad light in a 5-day game. So it is frustrating, and it's obviously been a huge talking point here. But I do think it needs to be addressed somewhere, somehow.
Okay, Ali Martin.
Hi, Joe. Just on yesterday, the light yesterday evening was pretty good, actually. I was just wondering if you were slightly surprised that the call was made at 4:45 to abandon the day's play when, obviously hindsight suggests that it was covered in sunshine thereafter, but it was quite an early call. And with you guys living on site, you're not having to get to another hotel. There's no logistical factors there, and all the broadcasters being on site. Was that not a surprise?
I was in the nets out the back, to be honest, so I wasn't really aware when it was exactly called off. But, it did, I think it frustrated a lot of people seeing the sun out later on. The hard thing was to really understand how wet certain areas were and how long that was going to take to get ready. And I'm sure that was something that was if it wasn't going to rain again, that was something that was definitely discussed by officials. You'll have to ask them really to get the ins and outs of it all. But of course, as players, we don't want to be sat watching it rain or, us sat on the sidelines not playing. We want to play. We want to be involved in exciting Test cricket and trying to make an impact on the world stage. So we're all for playing, but as long as it's safe and everyone's, we don't want anyone getting injured or hurt because of light or bad wet ground or surfaces.
Okay, Will Macpherson, John Etheridge.
Joe, you said you'd be up for 10:30 starts in some circumstances. We've got another game starting again in 4 days. This could happen again in theory. As you said, it's probably unlikely. But would you be interested in seeing us be agile enough to have 10:30 starts this week if needed?
I'm not sure exactly what that would have to go through, what channels that would have to go through. I think once there's surely an MOU at the start of the series, and once that's been put in place, I'm not sure how flexible things are to change, because it might potentially favour one side more than the other. But I think moving forward, it's something that could potentially looked at beyond this series.
Okay, John, please.
Joe, player safety is something that's been mentioned quite a lot, and you just touched on it there. I mean, do you, as a batsman and indeed as a fielder, do you feel in more danger, much more danger, when it's a bit gloomy? I mean, because cricket's a pretty dangerous game with a hard ball, even when it's sunny, isn't it?
I think there's an element of danger that comes into it, and I think sometimes with the bat in hand, if you're being brutally honest, it becomes more challenging. Rather than, I mean, sometimes when you're facing someone really quick, it can feel a little bit more dangerous. It can also be quite hard to, even if he's just trying to pick which way he's looking to swing it, or you might be trying to spot a googly from a leg spinner or whatever, and it's not as easy to pick out of the hand. That can be frustrating at times. I think more in the field, square of the wicket, is where you do feel most vulnerable. You don't want to be at fault running in the wrong direction, missing a big chance, one of their best players. If something, you get an opportunity and you miss it because you can't see the ball, you feel a bit hard done by at times. And similarly, the umpires might feel in danger as well if someone crunches a pull shot or hits one straight back at them. They've also got to be able to see and make the right decisions on field as well. So, I mean, we can talk. I'm sure you've talked so much about this already this week. I'm not sure I'm going to add anything worth or more interesting than all of your expertise added together. So I think
doesn't matter very much.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Cheers.
Okay, two more, George, and then Fazan, please.
Good day, Joe. In terms of selection, you've obviously got an attack that's kind of perfect for these conditions in this game. I wondered how much you take into account building an attack for Australia and, conditions outside England, and how much Mark Wood and Jofra come into that equation.
Yeah, obviously. We'll assess things at the end of tomorrow when everyone's had a day to recover. I know there's not a huge amount of cricket to recover from, but we'll have a real good idea of where everyone's at physically, mentally, going into the last game. And then we can make a decision on, firstly, what we think might suit the surface best, and also make sure we feel like we're exploring all options, looking at different things moving forward as well, and trying to get a balance between everything. I think we've managed to get cricket into most of the guys that have been involved in the squad throughout this summer so far. And we're learning all the time about the squad of players that are in front of us, both with batters and bowlers, and that's exciting. But there's an element of looking forward, of course, and we also have to make sure we look after what's initially in front of us with the next couple of days and that final Test match this summer.
Thank you.
Okay, last question. Go ahead.
Hi, Joe. This is Faizan from Pakistan. With Pakistan cricket team touring England is unusual circumstances. There have already been discussion that England should reciprocate a tour to Pakistan. Being a player, being a senior player, how do you see this possibility, and what are the thoughts in your mind regarding touring Pakistan? If you are asked to Pakistan, what will be your reaction?
Well, I'd love to go and visit Pakistan. I think it'd be a great opportunity to go and play there. Personally, unfortunately, it's not my decision to make, but looks a wonderful country to go and play cricket in. The wickets have looked nice and flat as well, which would be a nice change to what we've just played on here. But it was, you could see the emotion of everyone back in Pakistan when Test cricket was there. Last year, I think, back end of last year, and also speaking to a few of the players, how much it meant to them as well. They really appreciated being able to play back in Pakistan too. But yeah, again, with such a busy schedule already backlogging due to COVID, it'd be interesting to see how that would work.